So, one of the biggest trends amongst the big two of late, and I think in some ways you could even extend this to Image Comics and Dark Horse with certain titles, is prioritizing renumberings and going to issue number ones. With
Mm,
the big two, I mean, there's an endless amount of examples. Somehow we're on Superman number 11, I think, most recently. That character's been around since 1930, whatever.
38.
And somehow we're only on issue 11.
Yeah.
Uh, Meanwhile, with Amazing Spider Man, another character who's been around for 60 plus years, we're only on issue 45.
Mhm.
So we've had a number of volumes and renumberings and things like that. But at the big two, they love to have their cake and eat it too. Well, that where most recently X Men 35 is about to come out, but it's also X-Men number 700. So they're getting the legacy numbering and they're keeping the number lower. So they want new readers. They want that nice, new number one, which always sells better. You can always guarantee you're going to make a buck off of number one. But the flip side is that how do you know what volume you're even on at this point when there are 50 million number ones? It can get very confusing. So the question is, should the big two revert back to legacy numbering and going with the legacy number as often as they possibly can? Or are things fine as they are?
Uh, I'll even add to that problem. When you have multiple renumberings, it's also difficult to have a start to a run or to a volume. Because like, oh, I start with issue one of this volume, and you're reading an entirely different set of series or set of runs because they restart and they don't have that continuous nature. I'm for legacy numbering, frankly. And yes, it gets daunting just because you see that number. But if you understand the mechanisms of comics, which are arcs and runs, I think having that labeled out prevents, helps to mitigate some of that confusion and maybe making it feel too scary to jump into.
I think that's the trick. The publishers need to almost teach that. There would need to be marketing around new arcs, brand new. Like old comics did it. You ever pick up like a '90s comic and there's like brand new arc and a big, explosion image or new team, something like that. It's not marketed that way anymore. When I think of like the idea of legacy numbering and arcs and stuff like that, I always think of Thor because I could think of Straczynski's Thor, which was just straight legacy numbering. That was just I think it got up to Sean was like 700 went up
It
to.
was high. I don't remember
Yeah,
exactly, but yeah.
but like it was like a good 50 issues or so. Like, but it was just Thor. Thor would constantly the number would go up. There'd be a new Thor issue. You read the newest one, no matter how big the number was. Then you go to like Jason Aaron's run, which Jason Aaron's Thor starts with a new number one, then it goes to a new series, then it goes to a mini series, and then it goes to a Valkyrie book. And then it's like,
Yeah.
all right, if you want that full story, you're going into four different books at that point. And I'm not even talking tie-ins. Like these are the direct next issue in it.
Mm.
So I find that confusing. But then you go into the trade market. Like I think this makes sense for single issues to keep legacy numbering, keep that number going big. I play World of Warcraft. I like big numbers. But when you go into like a Barnes and Noble, how do you sell somebody on a book where you have to delineate that information via the spine? And if it doesn't have a number one on the spine, well, then they might not pick it up.
Hmm. Yeah, that's an interesting problem. It's a problem that I think the comics industry is still working to solve. And I don't know that there is really a solution to that because, outside of going by the title of the arc more so,
Yeah.
that is one thing you could do, but the volume has to be represented somewhere, right? Like it's got to be somewhere.
But even the volumes are different because if you take the collection of the arc, well, where does that fall in this volume of this era of, say, Spider-Man.
So it might be, Zebwell's Amazing Spider-Man theoretically is volume 7. I don't know if that's true or not, but let's say it is.
Mhm.
Every issue, every collection would be labeled volume 7, and then the arc title would also be represented on the spine in my mind. But I also don't think that that's how it's always been done, because I think
Yeah.
the Ultimate books were volume X, but it was all the same continuing story. Like I think
Yeah,
Bendis's Ultimate Spider-Man is like that.
it is. Yeah. All this has its own Dewey Decimal System. Ultimate,
Yeah.
you put a U in front of it. Ultimate, let's see. Ultimate version 2. Okay, so Ultimate U2. Okay, volume 3 of Fantastic Four. Okay, U2 FF3 point issue 5.5.
I think you just activated a sleeper agent somewhere. um,
Dude, that's
I think like Miss Marvel is a great indicator of how messy this is. Like Miss Marvel is getting a new miniseries. What, like next week, or by the time we're
Yeah.
recording this. And she had previously had the one where she was just became a mutant, which was what was it, First Class? What was it called? Does anyone remember Miss Marvel?
The First Mutant, I
First,
think,
the
or
first mutant. Yeah, you're right, Sean. Yeah, and the next one's Mutant Menace or something.
Yeah.
Um, and then before that, she had like just a series. So it's like those miniseries make sense for trades because then you don't have to put a number on it, but also it's still a continuation of her story. It's Man, it's a real mess. Because the collector in me wants to just be able to be like, all right, 934, 935. Because I'm looking at it from a top down thing, but
I was a big legacy numbering guy. I always said, legacy numbering is the right way to go for everything, and don't be ashamed of a big number. If people want to read the book, they'll jump on. That's how it is. That's what I did. Um, but I don't know if I still feel that way. Not at least not wholly. Because I think about, like, for example, here's what I think is a good example. Jonathan Hickman's X-Men. House and Powers, okay, those are miniseries, sure. But I don't think you can go right into X-Men 936 and say this is now the Krakoan era. I think it needs to be number one. I think it stands out. I think it makes it clean, and I think it establishes this is meaningfully different than everything that came before. But it's also not an adjective X-Men. It's adjectiveless. It's not uncanny. It's not anything like that. It's X-Men.
and I think back to when I was reading Doom Patrol. Um, Doom Patrol gets into Grant Morrison's run. It's just the next issue, you know. But then you're in Morrison territory, which is wildly different. And I got to imagine, like, if that came out in the year 2024, that would be a Doom Patrol new number one, you know.
I'm not so sure because stays. Batman's certain books keep their numbering.
Sure, but that was what, 15 years ago.
What do you mean?
Snyder's run did a new number one with Batman. Um, I
New
mean, that was New
52.
52, but
Yeah.
um,
And then they
yeah,
jumped right back to the old numbering.
it's true.
Yeah, so I guess that's my rub here is I think the elegant compromise at least is to have the legacy numbering with the whatever other current bullshit you're trying to sell.
That's
sure.
what Marvel does currently. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Does DC?
yeah, at least Superman and Batman are doing it too.
Yeah.
Because
I
action and detective are both on 1030 something.
it's the cleanest way to do it. Like, or as of right now, it's the cleanest way to do it because you want to. I think for the sake of continuity, want to keep that. Just it looks nice, issue 900 something, issue 10, whatever. And I even wouldn't have issue if in between runs or in between arcs or even creative teams, they keep that up. Like, let's say the last issue of, I'm gonna use Swamp Thing because easiest thing I can pull from is, but when after more and then all that goes through, there was like 172 issues, but then you pick up, instead of starting it new with, I think it was Diggle, and I'm forgetting the artist name, um, just pick it up from there, 173. Like, I think it's fine to keep that going, and you can designate the difference in the context of the comic.
I guess what they're doing now is the books that they have confidence in, like your Batman, Spider-Man, those sorts of books, they're comfortable with continuing the numbering and letting that be the number. But for maybe, I guess, smaller series, they're at a point where they're like, okay, we're gonna do a renumbering on this. The most egregious example I can think of late is definitely Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil, where it's the exact literal same creative team. It comes back with the same name, but it's a
Every
new number
arc.
one. Like,
Yeah, every
what in the
arc.
world?
It's funny. Mark Wade's Daredevil did the same thing. Same. It
Yeah.
was Somni and Mark Wade, new number one, just because he was in San Francisco instead.
I feel like Chip complained about that in his newsletter too. Like he was
It's
not thrilled about
ridiculous.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm more understanding now of it when they're doing it in a meaningful way. But the mini series where it's the same character and just a different mini series, like Tyler's Miss Marvel example, to me is just egregious. And it's tough. I guess they're caught between a rock and a hard place. And maybe
Mm.
the best answer is the legacy numbering and the new numbering. But to me, the idea that something is number 1063 and number 5 just seems bizarre. I don't know. And it's also like it's 1063 and number 5, but it's number 5 how many like how many number 5s have there been?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like it has every problem roped into one.
And then it's issue 10 whatever, issue 5 part 3 of,
Yeah.
this arc or whatever it might be. So
Yeah,
Dude, it could theoretically be 1065 and number 5, right? And then let's say 1055 or 1053 was also number 5.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Because it's a new volume with the same legacy
oh,
number.
yeah, yeah.
Yep.
I'm even thinking of Batman that's at 145 right now, which sounds like a big number, but that's just a recent number, you know, because that's, I think, Snyder's legacy numbering. I mean, I think the
It's
way Marvel
ridiculous.
does it is at least clean looking, just in terms of the way it looks in the cover, like the actual whatever the number that it's booked as. It's Spider-Man. What's next? What's this coming one? It's number
45.
45.
45 just came out.
But the legacy is like right underneath it, 939. Which we're
Damn,
getting close to Spider-Man 1000. Jeez.
look at that.
DC doesn't even do that outside of just Action Detective just being the full number.
Yeah.
I guess that's the closest we can get to something that can work, is that legacy numbering the way Marvel's currently doing it.
But the question, you have to pick one right now. Legacy or whatever other bullshit.
Legacy. Legacy has to be legacy. Give me that. Give me those 700s and 800s, baby.
Legacy. I think that the big two had it figured out just fine before, where they just used adjectives to differentiate
Yeah.
runs. You don't have to wonder what issues Joss Whedon's X-Men are. It's astonishing. That's it.
Were those technically still X-Men issues? They were just like the numbers were still concurrent. It wasn't like Astonishing X-Men 1.
I don't actually even know. I just know it as astonishing.
Yeah, it was astonishing
Oh, I
X-Men number one
gotcha,
because
okay.
it was the title. It was like uncanny. It was an adjective that they added
Yeah,
for
yeah.
to designate
I think that's
like
right.
the new X-Men.
Or you might be able to get, the creators, identified by the creators as well.
That's what we do now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Like when we're picking we're reading for book club, not that run, not the this one, but make sure it's the this person.
Well, Sean, do you remember a long time ago we did Captain Marvel?
And somehow some of us read the wrong thing.
That was me, yeah, because there were two volume ones
Right.
in the same creator run,
Yeah.
and I read the wrong one.
Did you read the Chris Anka one instead of the one with Kelly Sue and it was I forget.
No, it was two. There was two Kelly Sues, both volume
Yeah.
ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One I remember it was like a year later once Marvel now rebooted. They did another
Something like that, yeah.
I have an idea. I think I
Unreal.
have the real solution.
No, I want
And-
I want the gun to your head answer first.
Pull the trigger. No, I will say let's do. Oh, then you have no threat over me. I'm gonna go with the way it currently is in Marvel, the number with a legacy on it.
That
That's
was
not the
not
question.
the question.
Wait, you said legacy or?
Other bullshit.
I thought that would be
Other bullshit.
other bullshit.
Yeah, is that the bullshit?
No, that doesn't count. You know what I'm talking.
Oh, I would have counted that.
I would-
that's
yeah, I was
other-
counting
that's
that too.
It's not your question, is it?
This question is too complicated. Then I don't know. Other bullshit. I'll take other bullshit.
Okay. You're wrong. It's the legacy.
Wait, it had an answer?
Yeah, of course it did.
No, I have
Why
the
would
real
I-
answer. The real
Why
answer
would I
is
ask?
the real answer is multiple covers. Print more variants,
Wow,
and
that's
one has a
even-
legacy numbering on it, and one has the actual number.
Now we're
Whoa.
really getting into
Oh my
Dewey
God.
Decimal System fucking Dynamite Comics with their AA cover.
That's where I draw the line.
And then the comic shops can be segregated between like veterans and newcomers.
Mm.
All right. I think I think we'll leave it up to you, the audience, to determine what the final answer is. Do you think that legacy numbering is the way to go, or do you think that there's some other system that makes sense? Or are you happy with the way things are? Do you have experiences of getting screwed up by the renumbering? I think we probably all do. I can't recount one right this minute, but I'm sure we all do. So if you have one, leave it in the comments. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys.